Bienvenidos. You're listening to the Careers Without Connections podcast, the podcast for ambitious professionals building their careers from scratch and navigating career uncertainty, where we discuss all things creating greater opportunities and earning potential for yourself. I'm your host, Jana Linares, and today I am introducing Miss Cimaya McCreary. So Cimaya actually was, to be honest, the first person that ever reached out to me to be on my podcast. So that was a really exciting experience, and props to her for going after, something that she wants and having courage to ask for opportunities that she'd like to be a part of. But Cimaya actually works on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where she marries boots on the ground action with congressional prowess. Her passion for public service stems from her experience as an educator, organizer, and advocate. And today we're going to trace Cimaya's journey from her humble beginnings, coming from a single parent household, to where she is today, where she has earned her Master of Science in International Policy from Kennesaw State University. And she's working with some of the nation's most impactful leaders and decision makers up on the Hill. So thank you so much for joining us, Maya.
Well, thank you for having me. That's like an amazing introduction, and I'm like gushing over here. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, all I did with the introduction was just repurpose what information that you gave me and what's online. So it's very easy when the guest has already done great things. But I know from our brief conversations, you definitely have a very motivational approach to your work, which is to keep going no matter what. And I'm sure listeners would want to know, like, how has your upbringing in your background that we mentioned earlier, coming from a single parent household, shaped and influenced this mindset that you carry out today?
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, I come from a single parent household, and that's nothing new. We all experience adversity in life and challenges that mold us, and coming from a single parent household is very common. But when I was younger, it was a hurdle that I definitely faced. But in retrospect, it definitely made me stronger and stronger over time. Just seeing my mother, grandparents, my village kind of work hard for my sister and I, put this idea in my brain that, no matter what challenge you face, you can overcome it. Like we'd moved multiple times in a single year. I definitely experienced going to bed hungry and like not knowing when my next meal would be. But in addition to these uncertainties, there's like a psychological barrier as well, because, even today I struggle with socializing and making new connections because I'm like, okay, I won't be in this location for long. I'm going to move again. Or I don't belong here. Like, I don't have the newest clothes. I don't really know all the things. And so just that background has sort of a financial legacy to it, but also like a mental legacy. Until this day, I had to kind of shake off those insecurities. But over time, I definitely learned what it meant to build community and see that sort of obstacle as a superpower, because it taught me that I could keep going no matter what and kind of create a way out of no way.
I love what you said about turning obstacles into superpowers, because I myself believe, like, me coming from a first generation background and like being raised by immigrants, of course, a very different scenario, but kind of similar upbringings of just like struggling to understand where you belong and just kind of having a completely different perspective and understanding on the world that you're experiencing, just because what you are living at home is just very different compared to your peers. But what are some ways that you have kind of worked through that and overcome those points earlier that you made about, like feeling like you have to work through these thoughts of struggling to socialize and feel like you find belonging in places?
That's a great question. And I think for me, school was like my biggest escape. It was like my golden ticket outside of my situation. And I'm sure, listeners might relate to this because we go to school every day and it gives us that structure of like learning different things, reading different books, and sort of seeing a world outside of your own reality. So I definitely was nose down in my books, like the Judy B. Jones and the Dork Diaries. And I could relate to these characters who maybe didn't look like me, but had similar experiences as me. So that definitely gave me the backbone of, okay, like there is a world outside of this and things can get better. And in school, if I get certain grades and have certain opportunities, then maybe I could actually work my way outside of this sort of impoverished life. So school was a big deal for me, as well as just building my own personal compass of purpose and like meaning and having certain values to stick by. I learned early on that even if I don't have the money or the clothes, like character goes a long way. So just having different values like integrity or having a, high excellence for the work that you do and being proud of the work that you do. Like all of that goes into, your self-worth and making sure that you have the confidence, even if you don't have the material wealth that others do.
Absolutely. That was so beautifully said. You're like making me emotional.
Oh no, oh no. But I'm
In a
sure
good
again,
way. And
this,
no, in a good way. That's just like such a beautiful perspective that you have. And sometimes like just hearing like the reframing of it is just, just makes you think twice about certain ideas that you've crafted about the way that you see the world. And that's really all it was.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, what about you? How did you sort of change your mindset given some of the obstacles that you might have faced?
My mindset, I think, has been a long time in the works. I think it's honestly been several years of very intentionally doing things that were outside of my norm. I think I finally, for me, I got to a certain point. I was still in grad school where I took a step back and I was like, you're really frustrated about all these limiting things that you believe that you have, these things that I'm seeing as like obstacles and barriers. But I'm like, what are you doing differently? Like, who are you talking to? Where are you going? What things are you consuming? And I think for me, I'm a big believer in what you consume really impacts like how you view the world. And so I think being very intentional about the people that I bring into my circle, not just in my interpersonal relationships, but what types of podcasts I listen to and what types of creators I consume. And I think also too, when you're in the thick of things, it's so easy to hyperfixate on what's going wrong and what's not working and all the things that you have to overcome. But I mean, we're young and like we still have so many more things coming up. And so as I've been able to achieve some of my bigger milestones, then I'm like, okay, well, you did that, you overcame this thing that you thought was going to be the end of the world, and you're fine now. And that problem today would probably be like something that you would just laugh about.
Yes, I definitely understand that and like the hyperfixation and wanting to be perfect. Like one of my friends, she recently said, it feels like a boulder, but it's actually just a pebble in the road. So it's just this tiny thing, but in the moment it feels really big. So I understand that.
Yeah. Coming from a background in politics myself, and it's so funny because every time I tell people about the type of work that I do, they're always like, "Oh, you're the only person I know that does that." And I'm like, "Yeah, because it's a very specific type of person, I think, that can last in political environments." And props to Cimaya because she's on the Hill. She's like in the political environment. But I definitely want to ask you about what drives your interest and commitment to working in this type of field.
Yeah, so before coming to the Hill, I lived in Georgia. But before Georgia, I was actually in Maryland, which is not too far from the hills. So growing up, next to the nation's capital, I definitely saw, the hustle and bustle of people on the hill. And I was like, oh, this looks cool, but that'll never be me. Just coming from my background, like we mentioned earlier. So it was definitely, I don't know the listeners have read W.E.B. Du Bois, but just that double consciousness of being American and being Black, but then layers of like, oh, wanting the American dream, but I can never get it, and like having certain obstacles and like systemic things that you face. So I say that all that to say, I never dreamed of the hill. It was never like on my vision board or anything. But eventually, again, school changed that, and just learning about history, culture, language, justice, and then lack thereof. And so initially, I wanted to help others through therapy. I studied to be a psychologist in undergrad. I was going to become a therapist, but that led me to teaching. So I taught kindergarten and I mentored like high school students, college students. And then after teaching, that's when I actually fell into politics. So a like non-linear way of getting to the hill, but public service has always been my backbone and kind of helping the little people who get overlooked. So that's kind of how it all happened. I did not plan for this at all, but it found me and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
And from what I am getting to know about you, the more that we discuss, I truly believe that you like have the ideal, not just mindset, but like values of a public servant. And that's very hard to come by. And, even one day if you decide you want to pivot out of it, I know that the contributions that you're making now are going to be very impactful and meaningful, no matter what.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So you also mentioned that it kind of like fell into your lap. Do you have a long-term vision for yourself in that space? I know like some people, for example, that I've met in politics, and especially when we're younger, they say they want to be elected officials, they want to work their way up to senators. And like, do you have a sort of long-term vision? And if not, maybe like you can talk about a shorter one too.
That's a good question. As you mentioned, many people want to go to law school or like run for something one day. I definitely don't have a title in mind. My dream, and it might sound cheesy, but I just want to make a living helping others. That's always been my thing. And so whatever form that comes in, I am just here for the ride. And just, I guess practically the world is changing so fast, like the workforce and just the way that, you know, people in their 20s operate. Like it's no longer needed to go to college, even though I did. And like you and I both have our masters, right? So there is value in that, but there's also, unique opportunities that come our way from podcasts and, we can all just make our own sort of lanes. So I'm definitely open to all, opportunities, but as long as I'm making the difference, that's what matters most to me.
I kind of wanted to go back to what you were saying earlier about W.E.B. Du Bois
Hmm.
and kind of like the Black perspective of wanting the American dream, but not being able to achieve it. Because I don't feel like I've personally ever had this type of conversation with someone. And so I would love to kind of get into a little bit deeper and just hear more of your perspective on maybe like your take on what that author was kind of saying, or maybe your translation of it, just so I can be better educated. I'm sure maybe someone in our audience could be more educated too.
Yeah, so, one of the pillar texts that I read growing up was by W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm blanking on the exact title of it, but he himself was a thought leader during, the civil rights movement. And so he just spoke about how Black Americans have to struggle with being American and being Black. So just having that different experience than their white counterparts. And so it's definitely like a psychological trauma, a psychological struggle, in addition to, financial, material issues. I think it is unique and it still persists today, whether, you can turn on the news and see anything that relates to this, I'm sure, but it definitely still lingers in everyday life, whether it's the workplace or just going into a store and people might profile you. Um, And for me, like growing up in the South, I've dealt with unique things in Georgia. So I use this challenge as a superpower and just a way to be stronger and have like a sixth sense, if you will, because it makes me be more creative and more thoughtful about how I navigate the world.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what you and I were talking about earlier about translating obstacles into superpowers, I think that's the other thing about coming from a marginalized community is just we have to learn to consider a lot more things
For
as we're
sure.
navigating life. And me personally, I know like when I speak to the first gen community, we feel like we have to work twice as hard to get to the same point as everyone else. But then at the end of the day, I feel like when I got into the workforce and I was in the East Coast, I was in the Northeast for a little bit and I was around people with Ivy Leagues and working in the political space. You meet a lot of people that have really fancy looking titles and credentials, and not to diminish like their work or like the time that took them to get those things. But I have learned that my background and like the work ethic that has been ingrained into me because of my background just doesn't compete, or it, I guess I should say like it outshines. Like it has always found a way to allow me to persevere and move forward exactly how other people move about that have, had the opportunity to get these fancy degrees and these fancy titles and all those things. But does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And I know the quote you're talking about where it's like you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And so when you have to do that work, that energy, that drive, like it builds a muscle that other people just don't exercise. And so when you're faced with like certain challenges and it's like so easy for you to address or approach, and then someone else is just like kind of stressed out, but it's like, okay, like I've gone through harder things and, we've gone through harder things as women of color. And so I just try to see it as a strength, even though it can be really hard, especially in politics and navigating the world.
And working on the Hill as a woman of color, I imagine comes with its own challenges, especially considering the lay of the land right now. As you mentioned earlier, you can turn on the news and you can follow along with the changes that are happening right now and the environment that's being cultivated by people that are in decision making capacities. So, how do you create space for yourself and um, navigate that as you're still at the early stages of your career?
It's definitely hard, and I'm still navigating the landscape. I will say everyone's experience is different. For example, if you work in a Republican office, it's like as a woman of color, that would be very different working like in a Democratic office. And so um it's everyone's experience is different. But for me, I definitely stick by my internal compass, like I mentioned earlier, just having certain values to stick by because it can be easy to kind of shape shift and like assimilate, change yourself just because you're in certain spaces and you want to impress people or you don't want to say the wrong thing. And then, respectability politics, that's a whole nother, conversation, code switching, all of those things. But for me, I really try to be authentic. Like that's a big value to me, having integrity. Who am I when no one else is watching? Things like that matter. And people do watch whether you whether you see them or not. And so like all of that energy kind of comes back. I just try to pave my path by using those values and pillars, as my compass. And of course, like some people really value freedom. So if that's the case, then like maybe you have a more creative job on the Hill. Like there's a bunch of social media people. I don't want the listeners to think, oh, you have to be like rigid and be kind of like the perfect person. But I think as long as you have sort of characteristics that you live by, you can kind of be unshakable and undeniable in any room because you have like these benchmarks that will always matter to you. Kind of like, I don't want to compare it to dating, but if you were dating, these would be like your non-negotiables. And so just have like non-negotiable values that you stick by, but also having mentors help as well, just to kind of keep you accountable. Have like role models in the office, people that can advocate for you and teach you certain lessons and help you avoid certain challenges. And I've been really lucky in that way. Like every position I've had, there's been at least one person in the office, whether it's the receptionist or whether it's, senior staff, there's always someone that you might be able to look to and learn from. So I would advise listeners to always, find that person that can really help them through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really liked what you said about staying true to your authentic self, because I think a lot of the times too, when you come from such a different lived experience than a lot of people in these spaces, there are more Latinos, more people from the Black community that are getting their degrees and they are entering white collar spaces. But, historically, I know, especially for the Latino community, we have the lowest educational attainment rates. We tend to predominantly be in like hospitality and blue collar settings. But I think, especially when you are seeing other people that are portraying a different type of character or work ethic than what you believe is best for yourself. Not to say that theirs is wrong, but you're just like, this is different than what I personally like to follow and what I personally value. You kind of feel this pressure almost sometimes to adapt to it. And to your point earlier, similarly, but I think we forget that authenticity and our unique backgrounds is what brought us there in the first place. And we have so many ways to contribute from those unique lived experiences to begin with, especially when it comes to public service and politics and policy.
Yes, like you are there for a reason. And it took me a while to learn that. It took me, you know, having those mentors to say, yeah, we hired you for a reason. Like, you have the personality, you are more than qualified. And again, all of this takes time, but I hope that the listeners can understand, like, don't be shy, like use your voice, take up space. It's okay. And I will say, usually in every position I've had, there's like an employment resource group, or there's here on the Hill, we have caucuses. So there's, basically clubs where you can join and meet different people with similar backgrounds. So definitely find those little spaces, or like take the time to go to lunch and like walk with people. I've learned along the way to cold call, which I know you're used to. Just having those cold calls of like, oh, can we go grab coffee? You can do a virtual coffee and chat. Um, and also, sometimes we overlook like networking horizontally. Like we're so quick to kind of go to senior staff and people above us. But like, don't be afraid to talk to your coworker. Like, I don't know if it sounds silly, but I think maybe Gen Z might forget to like talk to coworkers and, people on our actual team. And people that are our age, because there is a lot to learn and like we all have our different backgrounds. So it's good to be curious and like ask those questions no matter who you're talking to, like if it's the receptionist or if it's the president, CEO. So I encourage everyone to like have those conversations.
Yeah, definitely. Would you have any sort of specific advice for anyone looking to break into politics or work their way up to the Hill?
Ooh, well, I'm like, I don't know if I'm the best person because let me back up.
You're already, girl, you're there. You're like already like the end goal, the dream. Because I feel like a lot of people that I meet that study political science or policy or anything like that, like it's their dream to work on the Hill. When I worked for Philadelphia City Council, a lot of people that were there wanted to be on the Hill. And the people that were there from the Hill said that they missed the Hill and they wanted to go back.
Well, thank you. Yes. The Hill is definitely prestigious and people like this is like vision board type role. And so, my advice is going to sound like hippie and all philosophical, but it's definitely like building your character because it's really easy to like change who you are, depending on the rooms that you're in. But people remember like your reputation, they remember your character. Like people will know if you're just calling them for a favor. People will know if you just need something. And so my biggest advice is just having that character and having that purpose in mind, like what is your why? That's really important. In addition to that, yes, tangible skills like writing a memo and like knowing the legislative process. All of those practical things do matter. Um, but the truth is that the Hill is all relational. So having your values, sticking by them, building those relationships really matter. And embracing community, like leave your mark wherever you're at. You can be an intern. Actually, one of our interns, I'm going to brag on them. They like cleaned up our kitchen and it was a mess for like weeks. And like she just decided to organize everything and things like that. It might seem really simple, but it's like a tangible change that she did and it like helped us. It bettered the office. And so just finding like those unique ways to leave your mark really do matter. You could, hand write a card and give it to your boss for their birthday. They'll remember that. And it seems small, but those type of things go really far. And, for the high school kids that might be listening and they're like, oh, I want to go to the Hill. Like it starts in your backyard. You don't need to be in DC to make a change, right? Like you can volunteer at the library. You can lead a community cleanup. You can start your own blog where you share lessons that you might have learned while in high school or like college prep advice. So just finding small opportunities to kind of connect with others and make that difference in your own backyard will really lead you to more opportunities.
That's a really excellent point. I love all those examples that you just gave. But speaking of, I can't forget, I need to ask you about the protests that you organized in Georgia
Oh my God.
because you brought it up. Because I want to hear about, like, what prompted the organization of the protests and how did it go?
Well, funny that you ask. This time last year, I was in Georgia leading protests. Not by myself, definitely in collaboration with other groups like Indivisible and, you name it. A lot of these groups are always doing the work like outside of the campaign season. So I just want to give them, props and stuff because these are like the boots on the ground people that really advocate for everyone. But I just found myself kind of upset and disillusioned with the way the world was going. So I was like, how can I use my voice to, make a difference? And how can I use my platform? So literally it was me and the group that I was a part of. We worked with, again, other local organizations to kind of organize a protest. We went to our local park and it was amazing. I want to say it was like over 200 people for my first protest I was a part of. But when you keep doing something, it'll gain steam. So, the lesson in that is just remain consistent, persistent, like don't let up on the gas pedal. And then people will watch too. Like the mayor, obviously, it'll go viral. And so like that, like those are never the goals. The goal is always to represent the people and give a voice to the voiceless. But when you do good work, people will notice. And so eventually I was able to support like even bigger rallies with elected officials. And so I'm grateful for those opportunities. And it's just like really cool to think about now looking back because I'm like, I used to be the girl that was so shy to talk to people, struggle with imposter syndrome and all the things like I'm not good enough, like I don't belong. And then all of a sudden I'm here in front of, 2,000 people kind of
Mm.
leading rallies and stuff. So it's really cool to see like where life can take you. But yeah, that's the protest story.
What were the protests about?
Like all the things, reproductive rights, reproductive freedom, women's rights, um, anti-fascism. So all the things you can think of. But
Yeah.
when you have like, it's such a buzzword, but the big tent issues, it's good to have that because you can build coalition. You can sort of partner with people you would never think of. Like I was standing shoulder to shoulder with, elderly folks just trying to like save the country. And so I was like, wow, you're my grandma's age, but you're out here and that's cool. Right. and there's
Yeah.
and there's there's a lot you can learn from that. There's a lot that you can learn from the older generation and vice versa. A part of that is remaining curious, like we mentioned earlier, and like being open to learning everyone's story because we're more alike than we think. We were fighting for like immigrant rights and yeah, it was a cool time just to see everyone sort of in the streets. The No Kings protests, that was huge. I'm like reminiscing, but that energy is like really unmatched when you're in there. It makes you feel good to kind of get off the couch and like actually engage in civic duties like that. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I wasn't here yet, but sounds like something I would have definitely been tuning
Well,
into or
yeah,
showing
you're
up to here
invited.
and there.
You're invited.
Well, if I ever know of a protest needing to be organized, I'll call you. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, which I'm not sure how much you can share about this, but
Okay.
what is the craziest experience that you've ever had working on the Hill?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, the craziest thing. Okay. Okay. The craziest thing would probably be the guests that we have. Again, every office is different, so this is not blanket statement, but we've had a few billionaires, we've had a few like celebrities come into the office. And so that's always exciting because there's like an entourage and paparazzi. And of course, we have rules about, filming things like that, logistical security things. But just the idea that, oh, I might meet Paris Hilton one day, or I might meet like a housewife. I might meet like the people you see on TV, just seeing their face around the office is really cool. And to know that there are people just like us, they care about some of the similar issues that we care about. It makes me believe in the world a little bit more to know that, okay, they care and like they're a human. And so, yes, that is always a fun time.
Yeah, there were a couple of celebrities that I either passed by or I knew that other staffers got to meet when I worked in Philadelphia City Council. And similarly as you, I kind of stumbled into politics. It was not
Hmm.
something that I explicitly saw myself in, but I ended up being in that space for a year. And now I work on the private side, but, still adjacent and exposed to those environments. But I know like Will Smith was at a street signing. Coleman Domingo was at City Hall, and I was in the same room as him. Everyone was like taking pictures. And I don't know if you know who Coleman Domingo is, but for anyone who doesn't know, he was the guy that carried the very last episode of season 3 of Euphoria. But I kind of just like sit in the corner because I was just like, I don't really know who this person is. And like, I know that you're like a big name actor, and just by looking at you, like, you're like radiating like talent and
Yes.
life and stuff. But I was just like, oh, let me just be respectful. Like, I don't want to go up to someone that I don't know and be like, oh my gosh, like, let me get a picture. And honestly, it was just such a cool experience just to like be near him and observe and kind of see the types of reactions that he got from other people. Like for me, that was enough. And I definitely snuck a picture of him like on my phone of just like him taking pictures with other people. So I was like, okay, this is good.
That's
This is good
so
enough.
cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite and least favorite part about being on the Hill right now? Like specifically, I say right now because I want to know like during this time.
Yeah, yeah.
as comfortable as you feel answering, because I know you got this today.
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So, um, I'll start with least favorite. Definitely, there are like a lot of bad apples in the bunch. And what I mean, obviously, there's people that disagree with your opinions, but also people who are just in this for the wrong reason, like for personal gain. And for me, that's not what it's supposed to be about. Like, it's supposed to be about helping others, representing your state, your district, whatever. It's not supposed to be about like selfish reasons. And so, like my least favorite thing would be encountering that. And again, like we mentioned earlier, as a marginalized person, whenever you encounter those types of people, everything just weighs a little more and like everything's exacerbated and it's like fight or flight and like, oh, I'm nervous now and I'm usually never nervous. Like, how do I navigate this? And so, um, yeah, like for me, I always want to be a good person and do good. And so when I meet folks that are kind of like icky, I'm like, oh, what do I do? But the good part, just meeting the folks that are like the opposite, I guess. People who are like human first, they want to know your story. And luckily it's been more of that than the bad apples, right? Yeah, just when folks really want to help you. And also, in my role, when I meet constituents, that's always exciting because they're like, they've never been to DC, they've never been on the Hill. And so they're just like gushing over everything. And so it feels good to like be that face and like represent the good in the world. And from teachers to like children here for spring break or summer break, whenever they visit us, I'm like, oh, welcome to our office. And they're like, oh, thanks for having me. I love you guys. So, yeah, it just feels like I'm doing good. Yeah.
Yeah, the constituent interactions are always special, and
Yes.
they can also sometimes be bittersweet depending on the context. But the last thing I want to ask you about is a lot of, I think, just people generally that watch content and are on social media aren't super aware of how to be civically engaged. And I've been seeing a lot of younger politicians really taking advantage of social media to make an impact. But I guess, like, what are other ways that people can understand to be civically engaged in a way that resonates with kind of our youth, like Gen Z and Gen X, like where we are today, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a good point. Social media is a big part of our lives, and politicians are using it to their advantage, which is so cool. I think for listeners, definitely figure out what your lane is, right? Because we're not all going to be protesters. We're not all going to be social media content creators. And so to be civically engaged is to just know who you are and like what works for you. How can you best serve your community? For me, that started with reading. As I mentioned earlier, like my escape was reading, learning history because history repeats itself. But for listeners, it might be watching a documentary, it might be listening to podcasts, it might be creating flyers for the protest. I think it just starts with knowing your strengths and how you can best serve your community. I know, some tangible websites would be mobilize.us. I believe that's the website where you can learn local events, like town halls, phone banking, letter writing, which can be fun and creative. There's also like local libraries, they'll post different volunteer events where you can get plugged in. So, those are just a few tools. Of course, when it's election season, knowing your polling location, knowing the voter deadlines, basic things like that, because people often forget absentee ballots, things like that. But yeah, just knowing what you're good at and how you can kind of use your talent for the greater good.
Very, very wonderfully said. And to close us out, is there anything that you're currently working on or that you're excited about? And how can people support you and stay connected with you?
Oh, okay. Anything exciting that I'm working on? I will say this. You can find me everywhere at Samaya's Life. There may or may not be a Substack in the works, but it is under that handle. So for listeners who are inclined, definitely follow me on Substack, Instagram, Samaya's Life. That's where you can find me.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to your hypothetical Substack, and I will definitely leave Samaya's contact and stuff that she just dropped in the show notes. And if you made it to the end of the episode, thank you so much for watching. I do want to let everyone know that I am officially starting my career strategy consulting. So if you are a ambitious professional navigating career uncertainty, looking how to create opportunities for yourself, and you want a little bit of guidance, then I'll leave the information for how to find me in the show notes as well. Please also give us a like, subscribe, comment on the podcast or whatever platform you're watching it so that other people can find it and we can grow the community.